Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 19th Cuppa Welcome to our 19th Cuppa Club. I am joined here today by Jonathan Atkinson from People Powered Retrofit. We are super happy to have him joining us today, and we're going to be talking to him about all things to do with retrofitting housing, which is very timely at the moment, given all of the news in the press at the moment regarding volatile electricity prices, protests on the M25 and all. So we will get to that all in due course. So we'll just wait for a moment while we have a few more participants join us. Jonathan, where are you today?
I'm in Manchester, in central Manchester, and I'm in our office here. So yeah, most people have cleared out, but there might be the odd person knocking around, so do forgive if there is.
Brilliant. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. So today we're talking directly to a business, but it should not be construed as a financial promotion in any way. We're just going to be talking and finding out more about the business. If you need any more information, you can of course read on our website more details, and we can't answer any questions on your own specific financial circumstances. So you can post your questions in the chat, so please do so, and I will feed those into our conversation. And we'll be running for about half an hour to 40 minutes today, so just enough time for us to ask a whole bunch of questions to Jonathan and put him on the spot. So Jonathan, thanks again for joining us today, and just wanted to really expand on that in terms of why what you're doing is just so relevant at the moment. And I know you've been quite active in the media over the last week or so. So just tell us how your organization fits into this, overall landscape at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our real focus is retrofit. That's energy efficiency measures, improvements to the home, and we're focusing on the owner-occupier domestic market. And why it's so important? Well, there are a number of reasons why one would want to retrofit their homes. All things about comfort, health reasons, all sorts of things. But our main driver, and the main driver really at the moment for this agenda, is around climate change, really. And that's linked to the carbon emissions that come from our homes. Around 20% of the UK's carbon emissions emanate from domestic sources, from the heating and powering of our homes. And yeah, it's a huge challenge for us to reduce that amount in terms of our commitments, our climate change commitments. And really, domestic energy efficiency in retrofit is a bit of a black hole for policy at the moment. There hasn't really been any policy in this area for the last 7-8 years. And so it's been left to people like ourselves, cooperatives, grassroots organisations, to innovate and get ahead and create something there. And that's something we believe we've done. I mean, you talk about the headlines at the moment, there's a few things going around. One of them, the key things like the skyrocketing gas prices. People cannot have missed that in the headlines. There's all sorts of things, all sorts of resolutions to that issue. But for us, the main one is, certainly in a domestic context, is to use less gas in our homes. Now, that might be from retrofit and energy efficiency and reducing the amount of energy we need, but it might also be from swapping out gas central heating from heat pumps. And again, so that's a clear opportunity, and it's one that the government haven't moved on, but we have, so we're able to do that. The other one, of course, people will have seen the protests on the M25, Insulate Britain, something coming out of the Extinction Rebellion movement. People will have their own opinions on that. One thing we can say is that it's a very urgent need, and it's one where obviously people are frustrated about the lack of action. So we can understand why people are doing what they're doing. But for those that either can't or don't want to sit down on the M25, this offers an opportunity for people to make meaningful change. And indeed, we've been advising Insulate Britain on some of their demands, but likewise, we're advising the government as well, who Insulate Britain are trying to motivate. So, really lots of things in the news at the moment.
Yeah, very timely. So just tell us about your organisation. So how long have you been running for? And who do you work with? Who are your colleagues?
Yeah, People Powered Retrofit, even though it's a relatively new organisation, a new community benefit society, it actually has quite a long lineage, and it also has a mature board and a mature staff team as well to it. So it really comes out of the work of Carbon Co-op. Carbon Co-op is a community energy organisation based in Greater Manchester, works to help people and communities make big savings in their carbon emission reductions. Now, a lot of the work Carbon Co-op has done to date has been in the retrofit space. It's been very innovative, deep retrofit, but it's also been small scale as well. So we've demonstrated our technical expertise, we've demonstrated what's possible, and really the next stage is to do that at scale. We've also been working with URBED. URBED are a worker co-op based in Manchester, fantastic architectural expertise and technical expertise. And really a lot of the work we've been doing has been informed by their work, and we've been using their architects and technical assessors to do that. So in the last couple of years, we've been running a pilot called People Powered Retrofit. And that was part of the BEIS, government department in charge of climate change and energy, part of BEIS retrofit supply chain pilots to create markets for energy efficiency and retrofit all around the UK. We're one of only 6 pilots, so it's very small scale. And we've been developing this service for the last 2 or 3 years now in Greater Manchester. And the outcome of that is that there's a huge amount of demand for the work we're doing. And that really has, it speaks to the lack of other options for people that want to retrofit their homes. You can't go out there, you can't pick up the phone, the yellow pages, the internet, and find a provider just to come and do that retrofit for you. It's relatively underprovided. And the work we've been doing has shown that we can develop a service that works for people. We've actually been fee earning and income generating there. So that's culminated now, all that work with Carbon Co-op and URBED and the People Powered Retrofit pilot has culminated into this new organisation, People Powered Retrofit. We've taken staff from Carbon Co-op, staff from URBED, created this new organisation, and we've got a great board as well, industry experts from around the UK to support that. And what I would say about the staff team, we have all sorts of people involved. Retrofit is a multidisciplinary kind of multidisciplinary practice, basically. So it's not just getting a load of builders on site and getting them to do the work that's required. We have retrofit advisors, coordinators, assessors, evaluators. We have architects on board as well. So we've got a multidisciplinary team, lots of people doing stuff. And if people look at the business plan, you can see we're also, as well as just delivering the retrofit to householders, we're also doing work around training contractors in green skills that we need and other people need. And we've been developing some tech for good software for other people to use our expertise and do what we're doing in other parts of the UK. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay. We'll come back to those sort of like 3 main strands, I think, in a minute. But first question coming in. So I'm going to hit you with some questions here on the spot. What's the size of the opportunity? So, you know, what are the estimated numbers of buildings that will need retrofitting by 2030? Specific date here. I don't know whether you can answer that or something.
I can. Well, yeah, the dates by which are a little bit contentious. So there are 29 million homes in the UK at the moment, and the vast majority of them will need some form of intervention, some form of retrofit. And the majority of them will need quite invasive, extensive, deep retrofit. So there are many millions of homes in the UK that need this work doing. The date by which those interventions are required is much discussed and debated. You know, up until recently, 2050 was our kind of target. Now that's been brought forward. There's an idea that we'll be net zero by 2050. So there's a good proportion of homes that need doing sooner. But research that's been done by the New Economics Foundation, that suggests that we need to do 8 or 9 million homes in the UK by 2025. And that's a 100 billion kind of investment. So it is a huge opportunity. And it's one where, in terms of People Powered Retrofit, we're going with the early adopters, the people that are super keen, super eager to do stuff. that's maybe 5 or 10% of the ultimate market. But it certainly means in a place like Greater Manchester, that's still tens of thousands of properties. And that's the kind of opportunity that we're looking at.
Great. And you mentioned training there. That's obviously like a core part of the proposition.
Yeah.
So are you targeting specific people and organizations for that training?
Yeah, I mean, the training one's a really interesting one, because I think all parties, government, the sector, the industry recognise that we have a skills shortage, and that's only been exacerbated by recent kind of developments in this area. So what you're seeing is a lot more money coming into the sector to commission training, and that's coming via local authorities mostly, or city regions, as well as some of the other providers as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there to provide training in green skills. It's also a developing market. There is some training out there, but it tends to be here and there, not full pathways for people to enter the sector and progress onwards as well. And it tends to be focused on certain professions and trades, more in the trades and the contractor, less in the retrofit designers and assessors and that sort of thing. So there's the people that we're targeting both those commissioners in order to deliver training on their behalf, and we're doing our own training and generating income there as well. So we're targeting people already in Greater Manchester, generally people already working in the sector, already doing something, but we do have 10 to 25% of those people are kind of new to the sector, and they see us as a growing sector and a new opportunity. So training is one of the areas that could really take off in the next few years, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any partnerships with local authorities at all? Yeah. We're currently working with Devon County Council and doing some training for them specifically around green skills and retrofit. We're also working with Greater Manchester. We have, as you can imagine, because we're one of the main providers in Greater Manchester, we have lots of links and contacts there. I actually sit on Andy Burnham, the Manchester Mayor, his retrofit task force. So, and that's an effort by Andy to really kickstart the sector in Greater Manchester. But I also am really involved with the Greater Manchester Combined Authority that Andy presides over, with lots of their kind of policy development and new work in this area. I think there's a lot of potential here to scale what we do through collaboration with housing associations and local authorities. They will be doing stuff that's more in the unable to pay, the fuel poverty and publicly procured works sector, and we're focusing on the owner occupiers. But there is certainly a lot of collaboration there, potential for it. Okay. So I've got some more questions coming in, specifically around sort of the governance arrangements and the business model. I'm going to come back to those in a moment, because I firstly just wanted you to talk a little bit more about the software tool as well. Yes. So how is that going to interplay? Yeah, again, it's good to talk about the division within retrofit, which is publicly procured works, eco and fuel poverty and green homes grants, local authority schemes, and the owner occupier space. And the publicly procured works, they tend to have their own software tools already, and they're used for compliance and for drawing down public monies. But in the owner occupier space, the assessment tools that we use to go into a property, understand what's possible, where they are at the moment, and provide costed sets of measures for improvements. It's really a under-provided space, really. We've developed our own software tool. We actually developed it many years ago. We've been testing it out and piloting over the years, but we've got a huge amount of demand for those assessments. Even though they start at £550, if it's going to inform works of tens of thousands of pounds, people see it as a good opportunity. So the software tool that sits behind it, a lot of other groups, people with similar ethics and values to ourselves, cooperatives, community energy organisations, and some local authorities, they want to use this tool because they can see it as an income generating opportunity for themselves. So we're replicating that tool, as I said, in Cumbria and in Devon and in Bristol at the moment, with similar organisations, and they're taking that opportunity to use that to generate income. And we want to use the share issue and the capital we raise from it to expand our capacity, really. to offer that tool to more organisations and to improve it, add more features, and make it available to retrofit designers as well, because I think that's another underutilised market there.
Right. So the plan to replicate your work hopefully will mean that you'll have this real amplification of what you're doing.
And a network of organisations who are doing similar sorts of things and are able to support each other. Logistically, the idea of People Powered Retrofit growing UK-wide is a non-starter, really, given the millions of homes that we need to deal with. Right. So we have a massive opportunity here in Greater Manchester, tens of thousands of homes, as I said. And the ability to scale and replicate comes from social franchising and licensing, really. That's what we would say is the clever way to replicate what we're doing and to create that like-minded network of other organisations.
Okay. That's really interesting. So just in terms of, you mentioned earlier about some of the staff coming from Carbon Co-op and URBED. Is the Community Benefit Society, People Powered Retrofit entirely independent of those two organisations?
No, it's not. So, and we talked about governance before. So we're a community benefit society. So the members of the organisation are the investors, and after the investment opportunity, we'll open it up to general membership, obviously not on the same terms as the investors. And from them, the board will be elected. Now, URBED and Carbon Co-op retain what they call custodian trustees. Okay, and the reason for that is to protect the mission of the organisation and to ensure that it sticks to that carbon focus, climate change focus, and to benefit from the expertise of those organisations as well. So the board will have just two members, one from Carbon Co-op and one from URBED, and then the rest of the board will be elected from the membership as well. There's clearly concerns about conflict of interest, and we have lots of measures in place there for any opportunities or contracts that might influence those organisations, that they step out the room and they're not involved with those as well. So there is a link there, and we think that's a beneficial link because it preserves that mission and that expertise, but there's also an independence as well.
Yeah, okay. But in terms of if people are investing in People Powered Retrofit, they are not subject to any, the business models are not linked, basically. So
no, and
it's entirely independent in that sense.
Yeah, and indeed, the work of Carbon Co-op and the work of URBED is entirely distinct from the work of People Powered Retrofit. And one of the reasons to go down this route is the fact that People Powered Retrofit is able to reach a scale of impact and a scale of delivery that Carbon Co-op and URBED simply aren't, because of the way they work. Carbon Co-op mostly in a grant-funded manner, looking at kind of marginalised communities and different opportunities. URBED is a consultancy practice that does a lot of master planning, urban master planning as well.
Mm-hmm. And how does community-led housing fit into your plans?
Well, it's really interesting. So community-led housing incorporates many different types of housing. You might have housing cooperatives based in a single home or multiple homes. There might be new builds. There might be historic community-led housing, like multiple cooperative houses that need refurbishment and renewal and that sort of thing. So what we're able to do in this for People Powered Retrofit is to work with existing housing co-ops that have housing stock that need a stock assessment and need stepwise improvement over time. So we're able to do those assessments, able to specify the works, able to get involved in procurement and that sort of thing. With the new build and those kinds of things, that's not particularly stuff that we specialise in, and there are other people out there that do that kind of work. But certainly where there's existing homes and existing properties, that's where we can help.
Okay, so in terms of your scale-up activities, what are going to be the key drivers to that, achieving that scale, and what are going to be the key speed bumps?
Yeah, well, sort of counterintuitively, or counter to what a number of people say when they come to the sector, demand is not one of our constraining factors. In fact, demand far outstrips our ability to supply that demand. So really, our constraining factor at the moment is capacity. And so the ability of this share issue to raise capital to fund that capacity is like a key thing to creating scale. There are some complexities around the service that we offer. Essentially, what we're doing is taking people from initial interest and advice through assessment, design, on-site, and out the other side. So we're taking people through the process. And the success factors here to scaling that, and one of the reasons that people haven't been able to scale it to date, is creating a service that takes people through that and is one that is efficient, time efficient, but also takes information all the way through. So you're gathering information at every different stage. So there are two factors there. One is the productivity of the staff. So maximizing the amount of productive time they are spending with clients on fee earning work. The second is the integration of the ICT tools. So that information is collected within our ICT system and used all the way through, utilized all the way through, from the assessment stage to provision to designers to quality assurance on site. And the more streamlined that service is, the more productive that service is, the better the fee earning and the better the ability for us to scale, basically. And another question that's come up in the past as well, we're fee earning at every different stage here. We don't get people in the front and then only charge them at the end when they're finished, because then we're completely reliant on the speed of their procurement and the contractors and everything. We're charging at every different stage, and we're charging based on the hours that we're spending on those jobs. So that's that. I mean, you asked constraining factors and bumps in the road. Capacity and the ability to bring capacity into the organization is definitely that. And we've found that already. It's not necessarily the contractors. There are plenty of contractors out there that can be trained up, people already working in homes. There's particular skill sets around assessors, retrofit coordinators and surveyors, and architects. And these are like professional services already out there, but they typically need additional skills and expertise to work in this sector. So that's one of the reasons we focus so much on green skills and training, because we're not only supplying a demand that commissioners and government have, we're supplying our own demand there. So it's kind of a circular element of the organization. So yeah, in terms of the scale up, it's not demand, it's about creating a service that's efficient and effective, an ICT tool that sits behind it and utilizes information, and ensuring those skills gaps and capacity gaps are met well in advance.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Questions about Bristol, actually, specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Are you working with any of the community energy companies or council in Bristol?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a great relationship with Bristol, different Bristol Energy Network, Project Cheese that do thermography and thermal imaging, and the Centre for Sustainable Energy and the Centre for Sustainable Energy, CSE. They're using our tool to do assessments. And we also have good links with the Bristol Council as well. So Bristol's a real hub for this sort of thing in the UK, definitely.
And there's a question about the specific sort of housing stock in Bristol, because it has quite a lot of historic buildings and period properties.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, luckily, my colleague Marianne Heaslip, who's the technical lead on People Powered Retrofit, she's got background as an architect, but also in conservation as well, and has done a number of different courses and qualifications that are out there. And we're really minded about heritage. And in one of the properties we retrofitted during the Carbon Co-op phase was a heritage property in a conservation area, and we're really minded about all the things there. So it's not there aren't simple answers that I can just reel off, but there are ways to retrofit buildings internally, externally, but not on the front elevation, to use different kind of materials and applications. But it's built into the service, the assessment stage, the design stage, and the on-site stage as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, someone's asking a question around average costs for retrofitting housing. You know, does that exist, or is it, you know, so different depending on the type of property?
There's a lot of discussion in this area, and there's a lot of complexity to it as well. And part of it is around our climate targets and where we want to be in terms of our housing stock. And the complexity comes in part from the fact that we are electrifying heating and transport in the UK. So we're moving away from gas and towards electricity. At the same time, electricity is decarbonising through the grid, becoming cleaner, more clean generation. So these are outside factors. So there is a context where in a electrically heated home, you could do nothing and decarbonise your house very slowly as the grid decarbonises. So yeah, I'm not going to get into the complexities. There's a lot there. But what we say in terms of the average cost of a deep retrofit to go to the standards we need to be hitting for our climate change targets, on average, it's £30,000 to £40,000. So it's multiple measures applied together. Yeah. Now, not everyone can afford that, and we understand that. Although I would say the average works costs within the pilots are around that. So there are a decent amount of people that can afford that. Other people will take a stepwise approach. They'll do a little bit here, a little bit there, as and when they can access finance. And we can support that approach. We have our whole house assessment. It can be phased, works can be phased, and often we do work with people like that. So yeah, what we tend to do though is work with people with budgets of around £10,000 and upwards. Some of the people we work with have £250,000 budgets, so it can get high. What we find is if you go below £10,000, you're starting to squeeze the fee that we're able to charge for our services to almost nothing. And it becomes not worth it for us, but also in terms of the extent of the costs, it's less worth it for the householder themselves. And there are other options for them to go down. It's one of the reasons why the Green Homes Grant scheme affected us a lot less than other people, because our budgets are higher. The £5,000 on offer from the Green Homes Grant was neither here nor there for a lot of our customers. So yeah, so I know it does, to some it sounds like a lot of money, but our research demonstrates there's a good lot of people out there who are willing to pay it. Okay.
And in terms of your core team, as well as the board, who constitutes the organisation, and do you second people from Carbon Co-op or URBED as well?
So in terms of the personnel, there's myself. I do a lot of the business development. I do a lot of the work with consultancy clients, local authorities, do a lot of the networking and that sort of thing. My colleague Marianne Heaslip, as I say, she's an architect, got fantastic, she's one of the leading experts in the UK, got a fantastic amount of expertise. She does a lot of the technical oversight in terms of our systems and our processes and the work that we're doing. We then have a service management team. We've got Marion, Lewis, Anika there. Marion does service design. As I said, how crucial it is that service works really smoothly. She's in charge of that and ensuring that it's iteratively being improved. Lewis works on the retrofit advice side. So people that come into the service, he talks to them, makes sure that they're the right kind of people, brings them through. And Anika's working on the training and on the consultancy side, the training and the contractor management side as well. We've got a number of other people in there as well. Anna has a particular focus on product management. She's a software engineer as well. In terms of the secondment, at the moment, obviously we're pending the share issue. Mm-hmm. When the share issue reaches its minimum, we'll draw down that money and we'll then start to employ staff. At the moment, those staff members are in Carbon Co-op and URBED. They'll be very initially seconded, probably for a 2 or 3 month period, and then we'll directly employ. They'll come across, there'll be a 2P process, and we've got a fantastic advisor, People Support Co-op, specialist HR consultancy that are doing all the due diligence on that. So yeah, in the very early days, there will be some secondment, but we recognise that really an organisation like this, the key asset is the staff team. So we'll be directly employing staff you know, in the first quarter of our operation.
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. So I'm going to ask you a couple of tricky questions now. So get ready. So what about competition? You know, who else is out there? What are they doing, and how do you measure up?
I mean, it's a very peculiar situation at the moment in that there is very, very little competition. If you are an average householder in Greater Manchester with a budget to spend and you want to get this work done, your ability to do that is very limited. There are one or two retrofit specialists out there. People might be familiar with the AECB network of mostly sole traders, consultants. So you can go to one of them. They might work with 2 or 3 people in a year. So that really marks us out. We're working with multiple people at the same time. There are some local authority schemes. They tend to work with a specific segment. They might be benefits tested, or they might have lots of strings attached. Certainly the Green Homes Grant Scheme in Greater Manchester is run by E.ON. Not everyone I know would trust E.ON to go into their homes and retrofit them, but that's their decision. But the offer that's available there is very limited in what you might be able to get. So there's very little competition out there. There are other organisations, Cozy Homes Oxford, Retrofit Works, doing bits of stuff elsewhere, and we work closely with a lot of those, a lot of knowledge share and information sharing, and we definitely want to work collaboratively with those organisations, but they tend to work in specific towns and specific cities away from us. So yeah, in competition terms, it's a very odd situation. There is very little.
Okay.
I would say I don't expect that to last.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think being first to the market doesn't mean you're best. You know, that there's going to be a lot of competition as we go along, definitely.
Well, I think that's the beauty of doing a share issue, isn't it? A community share issue is to get, you know, a huge amount of ethically minded supporters behind you pushing ahead, and, you know, hopefully you can expand and roll out all of the good work that you're doing. Question, you mentioned that People Powered Retrofit Community Benefit Society is relatively new. When was it actually incorporated?
In June.
In June, okay.
People Powered Retrofit Limited. Yeah.
Okay, so it will not be assuming any deficits or surpluses from any of the other organisations. So it's starting fresh. Yes,
but what we do gain is a lot of the intellectual property that's been generated, everything from the branding to the systems and the processes. So although we don't have monetary kind of startup costs from Carbon Co-op and URBED, we do have a great amount of collateral and assets there. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, in times of expansion, you obviously are raising a certain amount of money, which is underpinning your business plan. For how many years are you expecting, and when would you expect to have to raise again in the trajectory that you've put forward?
Yeah, our business plan is a 5-year business plan. So it's that kind of time scale that we're looking at. And the focus of it is to grow that capacity as much as possible to expand the number of properties that we can work with and other clients as well. And we're looking to go from the time we start, it's around 60 clients. We want to go up to about 500 clients a year in the year 5. And really, the kind of bones of it is that the service is fee earning, and it breaks even. You know, it's not a loss leading service. We're not doing something that's losing us money. The issue is around building the capacity and building the overheads of the organization, and that's what we're doing in years 1, 2, and 3. And by year 3 into year 4, that's when we're starting to break even as an organization, and that's when we project that we'll be able to offer dividends and offer withdrawals as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So there is a question around training again. You
Yeah,
possibly have already answered it,
that's all
but
right.
so are the builders that you are working with, do they get certification? And how much, do you need to pull them up in terms of their knowledge?
It's a really good question, actually. So practically, the contractors that we use that are part of our procurement exercises, so we don't contract directly ourselves, we help our householders procure. So the contractors there, they don't need accredited training. They need the skills and capacity and track record to be able to do the work. And we have a two-stage procurement process where we assess their capacity and expertise. We look at their references and that sort of thing. Now, contractors want to join our network and say, I want to get better, I want to be able to do this kind of work. We offer training that they can access. And the training, there is a general training, eco renovation for builders. That's kind of level 2, level 3 on the kind of level scale, intermediate level. And we offer CPDs, specialist CPDs, things like triple glazed windows, heat pumps, that sort of thing as well. Now, the training is not accredited, but the discussions with commissioners and discussions with partners, project partners around commissioning, we've had suggest that maybe accreditation will be a route we'd want to go down, because it will open the door for us to do more, be commissioned to do more work, and also it gives you access really to different level of income generating from trainees as well. So yeah, there's not a requirement for a certain level of training. It's all about expertise, but it is something we're looking at, the accreditation.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, you mentioned CPD.
CPD, yeah, not CPD. CPD, continuous professional development. So essentially, the webinars and the training that we do in that sphere is for people who are already active in retrofit. They're probably at quite a high level already, but they want a specialist bit of expertise, or just a refresher, really. So they might be specifying triple glazed windows. They want to be reminded of some of the key requirements there, some of the peculiarities around installation, or they might already be doing it and they just want to refresh or even share their expertise. So the CPDs, we did 1,000 attendees to our CPD sessions in the last 12 months. So they're incredibly popular, and we're able to offer them online, which is, one of the plus points, I guess, of the pandemic. Yeah.
Is there any liability that you take on because of, any complaints or such like?
Yeah, I mean, liability, especially in refurbishment and retrofit, is something to be very carefully managed. I mean, it's one of the reasons we don't do contracting, because there's liability associated with that contracting. What I would say is we do take on liability, and the liability we take on, we're insured against it. Yeah. So the assessments that we do and the advice that we do, there is liability there, and we're insured. But the major liability comes in two forms. One, in the contracting and the delivery of that. And again, we don't contract, we procure, contractors bear that liability. Secondly, in design, and the design liability is held by specific architects, and it's linked to their insurance. Yeah. So that, again, is very tightly regulated. There's a lot of work around that, but there's a lot of thought that goes into it from our place as well. We're really minded of the issues involved.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jonathan. So I think that probably answers the majority of the questions that have come through. While I just take a quick scan through, are there any other points that you'd really like to make, that we haven't talked about?
I really think we've done a lot, which has been great, really. We've talked about the demand and the capacity that we want to invest in, the skills and expertise within the staff team, some of the key success factors as well, looking ahead. I really do think that it's a sector that's just taking off at the moment. The use of ICT tools to enable that to happen is just really changing the market, and it's changing the ability for organisations such as ourselves to do that. one thing I haven't mentioned is, and I think it is integral when we talk about competition, is as a community benefit society with that not-for-profit status and that member-driven approach, there's a real trust factor there. And one of the things when we talk to householders that they're looking for is a trusted intermediary, someone that's not trying to sell them something like make a quick buck. And I think the trusted element, the community-led element there, the trust is kind of hardwired into our governance, and it gives us a competitive advantage when we're talking about E.ON or other people out there. So I think that is a real selling point for ourselves.
Yeah, great. And obviously that's why we love having organisations like yourself on the Ethex platform. So what we'll do is we'll capture all of those questions, we'll send them over to you so you can have a look, see if there's anything we missed. And if there's any additional resources, obviously we can send that out in the email as well. I would say to everyone, do have a look at the Ethex website, because there's more documentation and information on the website. So do feel free to peruse that in your own time. And we'll be sending out the link to this as well, so other people can listen in their own time. So thanks, Jonathan. It's really nice to meet you, and good luck with the rest of your raise. And thanks for being an excellent guest today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.